My video on how to shoot with the 35mm lens is still one of our most popular, but the 50mm, that's the most classic focal length in photography. By the end of this video, you'll know why the 50 is the lens almost every photographer owns and how to make the most of it. I'm Brenda Bergreen, and today I'm sharing what makes the 50mm so special. I'm comparing it to some other popular focal lengths, and I'll give you practical tips for using it in real-world situations. First, let's talk about what makes the 50 so special. The 50mm prime is the lens that practically built modern photography. For decades, when you bought a film camera, it almost always came with a 50, f1.8 or f2 lens. That meant millions of photographers, from students to professionals, started with a nifty 50 in their bag. It's usually lightweight and affordable. It's fast and sharp with options from f1.8 all the way to f1.2. It offers a natural field of view that feels close to how we see the world. And it's versatile, perfect for portraits, street, travel, and everyday storytelling. That's one of the reasons we love the 50mm for travel. It's small, light, and versatile. You can capture portraits, street moments, and landscapes all with one lens. If you're interested in learning more about how we pack and shoot while traveling, check out our travel photography guide in the shop. I'll link it below. Some of the most iconic images in history were shot on a 50mm lens. Even today, that tradition continues. It's still one of the first lenses people buy when they want to move beyond a kit zoom. Make sure you're subscribed because I'll be talking about the kit lens in an upcoming video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about using a 50 on a full frame sensor. So if you're shooting on a crop sensor camera, you'll need to do the focal length math and probably shoot on something more like a 35. Just know that you'll get much more bokeh with a full frame camera than with a crop sensor camera. Now, let's talk about how the 50mm compares to some other popular focal lengths. First up, how does the 50 compare to the magical 35mm? Well, the 35 is wider, great for storytelling and capturing the context and environment. But the 50 gives you shallower depth of field and better subject separation, what makes it stronger for portraits. I'll use the 35 during a wedding prep when I need the whole room. But when I want to isolate a moment, like a mom zipping her daughter's dress, that 50mm gives me that intimacy. Take these examples from the 35 versus the 50mm. Notice the storytelling qualities of the images shot with the 35 versus the simplicity of the images shot with the 50. Next, let's compare the 50 to the dreamy 85mm. The 85 is a classic portrait lens because of its compression. That dreamy bokeh is what many portrait photographers are going for, but it's heavier and less versatile. The 50 is lighter, easier to carry, and can switch from portraits to everyday shooting without skipping a beat. The 85 can feel more restrictive because of the working distance, whereas the 50 allows you to be more nimble. An 85 is beautiful outdoors, but in a crowded location, tight, the 50 lets me stay nimble without being in the way. Take these examples from the 85 versus the 50. Notice the flattering compression and dreamy background blur of the 85, but notice the variety I can get with the 50 because I can try different framing and move around easily, even in tight spaces. And finally, what's the difference between using this and just using your kit zoom at 50mm? This is where the prime lens shines. Even if your kit lens can hit that 50mm focal length, a 50mm prime is sharper, faster, and performs so much better in low light. If you want to see the difference, try shooting your kit lens wide open at f5.6 versus a 50mm prime at f1.8. It's night and day. If you're still shooting a kit lens, make sure you hit subscribe because I'll be posting a video soon on how to shoot with the kit lens and when it's time to upgrade. If you're not sure what to upgrade to next, we made a free money and gear guide to help you make the most of your budget. I'll link that below. Take these low light examples from the kit lens versus the 50mm. Notice how the kit lens needs a high ISO, making it noisy, where the 50 is clean and crisp, even without a flash. And with portraits, you can see the crisper subject and bokeh that the 50 captures versus the softer, less separation of the kit. Let's talk about the 50mm versus the smartphone. A lot of smartphones simulate portrait mode around 50mm, but the real thing gives you more control, more light, and more depth. The fake blur of your phone portrait mode is imperfect and it can cut off your ears or glasses or hair, whereas the 50 works even if the subject wears a hat or the hair is blowing in the wind. Let's talk about 50 across systems. Canon, Sony, Nikon all have a 51.8 as their starter prime. There are also pro upgrades for those of you that know a 50 is going to be your powerhouse. If you need faster autofocus, better low light performance, or creamier bokeh, Those might be reasons you would want to upgrade to the f1.4 or f1.2. I'll link our suggestions below. It's a great way to support the channel. Now let's dive into some tips for shooting with the 50. How do you make the most of this lens? First, get creative with depth of field. Shoot wide open for dreamy bokeh, then stop down for sharp group shots or environmental portraits. The versatility is what makes the 50 so fun, so make sure to use it. Number two, mind your distance. Because of the focal length, if you get too close for portraits, you might start to see some of that distortion in faces, maybe bigger noses, stretched features. So if you step back a little bit to keep the proportions natural. You're not looking necessarily for the tight headshots that you would with an 85. It performs awesome for those 3/4 length portraits or even full body environmental portraits. This lens strikes a great balance between too wide and too tight. So use the working distance to your advantage. Next, tell stories with perspective. So speaking of those environmental portraits, don't be afraid to pull back for wider framing or step in for intimate close-ups. The 50 lets you do both without switching lenses. So use the versatility by moving your feet and getting creative. Don't shoot standing still at eye level all the time. Get your workout in. Get low or off to the side, shoot through objects. This lens is light and nimble, so move around and really work on capturing those fleeting, candid moments without being weighed down by gear. Next, use it in low light. Whether it's a wedding reception, an evening event, or travel at night, the fast aperture makes the 50 one of the most reliable lenses you can carry. Don't be afraid to use this lens in low light. Low light shooting is a great way to push your creativity and try something new and interesting. It also validates your reason for having a prime. When it comes to composition, use negative space and leading lines to emphasize your subject. With the separation you get at 50 millimeters, this technique really pops. So avoid just putting your subject in the middle. Since it's such a natural focal length, you kind of have to work a little harder to avoid that snapshot look and get something interesting instead. And then let's talk about light play. The 50 isn't boring. It's fun and flexible if you know how to use it. With that fast aperture, you can experiment with backlighting and flare, shoot wide open and get a dreamy glow, or stop down for starbursts from light sources. So to recap, the 50 millimeter is affordable, fast, versatile, and classic. It's not just a beginner lens. It's a lens you'll keep coming back to throughout your photography journey. I'd love to hear from you. Do you prefer the nifty 50 or does the 35 millimeter fit your style better? Let me know in the comments. And if you're trying to decide between the 35 and the 50, check out my earlier video on the 35 or the one where I compare the two. And if you're still figuring out what lens to buy next, I also made a video on how to pick the right lens for your photography. Links to all of those below. In the description, you'll also find links to my favorite 50 millimeter lenses, from starter options to pro upgrades, plus our free money and gear guide to help you spend smarter, and our travel photography guide in the shop if you're ready to take your camera on the road. So be sure to hit subscribe, and in the meantime, check out more from this How to Shoot series. I'll see you in the next video.